Salam Sejahtera, Salam Bahagia, and a very good morning. My name is Ramesh Loganathan, and on behalf of the English Language Teaching Center, Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia, I'm truly honored to welcome all of you, esteemed audience, to our forum entitled Relevance and Importance of the ESL Literature in the Era of Industrial Revolution 4.0. Together with us today, we have our distinguished panel of speakers. I'm going to introduce them one by one. And we have here Prof. Datin Dr. Ruzi Suzila Hasim, big name and a giant in the field of literature studies. And she's a professor in the School of Language and Linguistics, National University of Kuala Lumpur, UKM. And then we have Prof. Madhya Dr. Rahana Muhammad Maidin. She's an associate professor currently lecturing in the School of Language and Linguistics in the National University of Kuala Lumpur, UKM. And she is active in the use of EdTech in the teaching of literature. And then we have Pon Surya Kumari Chandradas, teaching English and literature for 30 years, currently teaching SPM and STPM literature in English. Right, and she's also a DDTV Jurulatih Utama and for the state, SPM and STPM literature for Penang. And not forgetting our Cik Rabiatul Adawiyah binti Yusuf. She's actually, she holds a degree and a master's in law. The second master's is in literature, and currently she's pursuing a PhD in literature at UKM. And one more interesting thing about her is she's an active social media influencer. So welcome all of you panel speakers. Thank you for joining us today. So my first question for the day is going to revolve around the idea of IR 4.0. And we know that the Industrial Revolution 4.0 was mentioned as early as 2011. And later it became popular in the World Economic Forum in 2016, where a declaration was made that the globe was at the inception of the fourth industrial revolution industry. And today we find that we are drawn deeper and deeper into IR 4.0. And looking at this advent in Malaysia, especially through the lenses of teaching, education, ESL literature and all that, we are at many crossroads, many questions. What is Industrial Revolution 4.0? And where are we? And where are we headed? So, panel of speakers, shall I ask Prof. Ruzi the first to get an idea of what is IR 4.0?
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and thank you for inviting me to this forum. It's an interesting issue to discuss. I will now share my slides. Okay, everybody can see this? Yes?
Yes, right. Prof, I can see that.
Thank you. Okay, again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Right. We have watershed moments in our life, right? And I think the two that are that you see in your face are industrial revolution 4.0 and of course the pandemic. So whenever these events come up, these are crises in our lives and we need to manage them. Okay, so I will not talk about COVID-19, but I will focus on it mainly on Industrial 4.0, although I think in a lot of ways they are interrelated. Okay, because both are disruptions. One is, Industrial 4.0 can be seen as perhaps good disruption, but not COVID-19. So when we talk about Industrial Revolution IR 4.0, we're talking about we are in the fourth one at the moment. Although some countries are already talking about revolution 5.0. Okay, but we are in Malaysia, we're still talking about 4.0. So what it means is that the ways in which our economy has changed from farming and handiwork to one based on industry and machines. So if you look at the first industry, in the first IR, uh, was focusing mostly on mechanization, water power, steam power, and then we move on to mass production, the second IR, mass production, assembly line, and electricity. And then the third one on computer and automation. And we are in the fourth one, what we call cyber physical systems. So when we look at all this revolution, and more will be coming up as as we go in future, we will see how human beings are being marginalized because of these technologies. Okay, I will go on to so we are now in the fourth IR, we are driven by these exponential technologies, 3D printing.
And this marginalizes people, Prof.
Yes, yes. Of course, they will marginalize people, or we are already being in some aspects we are already marginalized. Okay, for example, 3D printing. Uh, Apparently, well, when it has happened that you could, instead of transplanting a real liver, it could be a 3D printed liver. So all these things are happening. Advanced materials, automation and robotics, biotechnology, battery and energy storage, blockchain and distributed ledger. What's that? I cannot see. Geoengineering, Internet of Things. Used to be Internet of Things, now Internet of Everything. Supercomputing, artificial intelligence, space technologies, AR, augmented reality, and virtual reality. And Dr. Ramshu will talk about AR and VR in her talk later. But these are technologies that we see nowadays, and they are becoming more and more advanced. That it's difficult to catch up. So the term IR 4.0 was actually, as you mentioned just now, was actually mentioned by Schwab in 2016. And he said that it is characterized by a much more ubiquitous and mobile internet. I mean, it's around us, it's
Mm,
ubiquitous, by
mm.
smaller and more powerful sensors that have become cheaper, and by artificial intelligence and machine learning. So don't be surprised at every point you see actually you are being monitored by sensors.
Yeah.
Okay, even wound healing will be, we at UKM we are doing it. Instead of the sensor will tell us how much we have recovered. So you don't need to open the wound anymore. It's all detected by sensors. So therefore, the fourth IR, however, is not only about smart and connected machines and systems. Its scope is much wider. So so what will happen is that these are some tipping points that Schwab mentioned that will happen in 2025. 10% of people wearing clothes connected to the internet. Not like now we use our phone and we are connected, but now you wear clothes and you'll be connected to the internet.
Wow.
90% of people having unlimited and free advertising supported storage. 1 trillion sensors connected to the internet. The first robotic pharmacist in the US, reading glasses connected to the internet. 80% people with web presence. First 3D printed car in production.
So in a
Okay?
way, we would be like a walking Wi-Fi, or I mean,
Yes.
a walking connector, a walking router, maybe.
Yes. And don't be surprised if instead of having, we might be have a chip somewhere under the skin or something like
Yes,
that.
yes.
That's how we, the future, who knows? But all these technologies in some ways have been predicted by literature, by literary works. So I would say
Oh,
don't
so that's
abandon
very
literature
interesting. Yeah.
first. Don't abandon literature at all, because literary writers, a lot of our writers actually predict the future. These have all been predicted in a lot of books, especially in science fiction. So Malaysia's readiness, how are we dealing? How do we deal with the disruptions? So actually, if you are not aware, we've got a national policy. It's called Industry Forward. Okay, meaning industry forward, industry for IR. So it's a national policy on industry 4.0. So you may want to read it to see how we are uh, planning, strategizing the way forward. Um, Even Ministry of Higher Education has also come up with a book on a plan on fourth IR and higher education. So when you look at what I showed you just now, the 12 drivers, and the future, the tipping points, it look as though where do humans, where are we in this surrounding of technology? So it seems as though humans need not apply. Soon there'll be like a person could be 90% robotics. You have, you can have robotic liver and so on. Different parts of your body are all governed by robots or by machines. So you are actually, maybe your brain or your heart is the only thing. Even the heart can be uh, can be made into, can be something that's not original from another person's heart. It could be another machine. So it seems as though humans don't, where are humans in all this? Now, so Steve Jobs said, in his book, Technology Alone is Not Enough. It is in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. So we've got this man who has created so many kinds of technologies, and yet he said technology is not enough. Is technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our hearts sing? So therefore, so I would say, even though we are surrounded by technology, we should not uh, dismiss liberal arts, humanities, or social sciences. And literature is it's encompassed in the liberal arts, encompassed in humanities and social sciences.
It's like, the character in Terminator says, hasta la vista, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's a
Okay.
robot and he's able to say that. Yeah.
So yeah, therefore, there are all these creations, but human make them. And the human, and to understand, to inject sense of compassion, sense of, love, which only humans have. You need you need subjects that teach you those things, that you will be that you will immerse in these emotions. No, this is what happened when Steve Jobs took calligraphy. He said it was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science cannot capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. So you see, even something that we think might not be suitable, or we do not think that it will be useful, calligraphy actually was something that he used in designing the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. It had never dropped in on that single course in college. The Mac would have never had multiple faces or proportionally spaced fonts. So this was all taken, inspired by what he studied when he took calligraphy. Okay, so when we looked at the technology around us, it's as though we are no longer useful. So people talk about a world without work, like if machines are doing things for you, what do you do? Okay. So a world without work is coming. It could be utopia or it could be hell. So someday, this was written in the Guardian. Someday, probably not in our lifetimes, but perhaps not long after, machines will be able to do most of the tasks that people can. At that point, a truly workless world should be possible if everyone, not just the rich, had robots at their beck and call. Then such powerful technology would free them from the need to submit to the realities of the market to put food on the table. And what is especially tricky about a world without work is that we must begin building the social institutions to survive it long before the technological outmodedness of human workers actually arrives. So therefore, even when we no longer need to work because the machines are doing it for us, we still need to have social institutions. And these are all the duty of human beings. So it's not a battle between human beings and machines, but it's human beings thriving beyond technology.
Mm.
So if we look at, say, Frankenstein was a novel written by Shelley,
Mary Shelley, yeah.
yeah, Mary Shelley, and this was, a few centuries ago, and yet even at that time, this was, she was commenting, she was actually writing against industrial revolution at that time. And what the book tells us, okay, Frankenstein is the doctor who created the monster.
Yeah.
So what happens is that when irresponsible pursuit of scientific knowledge causes turmoil, sorrow, and misery for the novel's protagonist. So this is what we learn from a novel, which in so we are so consumed with technology that we've forgotten that there's ethics that we must abide by. And
Yeah.
in this book, in this novel, it teaches us about ethics of creation. What do you create and what can't you create? Can you take over God, for example? Okay. So this is what happened when human beings are trying to go beyond godliness. So,
So in a
another thing,
sense, we tend to remove God from when the advent of technology can also possibly remove the idea of creation, natural creation, right?
yes, yes, yeah. So therefore, when we within this fourth IR, if we dismiss, we think that okay, you don't need literature because we're just focusing on technology, and we don't, like some people say, we do not see ourselves. Where do I feature in all these things? As I said earlier, this is the question would be okay. How do we envisage our socialization or our society? So things like morals versus ethics, which are important for us to live, with happiness, in peace, and all that. And this, you see things like issues of morals and ethics do not feature in the fourth IR if we were just concentrating on machines and technology. So things like, do we cure diseases or engineer better humans? So for example, you want to get rid of diseases altogether. So do we then promote eugenics, where you say only the best genes can live? So if you are going to be suffering from kidney disease 30 years down the road, you might as well not live. you know so we'll kill so those perhaps it will come to a day when those who are going to be ill, useless, why not we do away with them first? Because but these are questions that a lot of novels, short stories show. these questions about morals and ethics. When technology is too pervasive, okay, what happens to our morals and ethics? For example, now we need sensors, we need cameras for security, but it's also being used as surveillance. Wherever you go, Big Brother is always watching you, you know? So, for example, when you go type on your phone, I want to know what time is Zohor today, and then my phone will say, can you share location? Like, so the phone knows where I am. So we are constantly under surveillance. Um, Trust algorithm or trust family advice. So, for example, should we do this? Sometimes we go into, okay, look at AI, look at algorithm of certain certain mathematical programs, and this may be this we are in a lot of ways we are already heading there. We are trusting algorithm
It's
that
like WhatsApp. It's like WhatsApp taking over, our work time. It's kind of influencing our work right now. Without
yeah,
WhatsApp, you can't work.
yeah. And do we post everything or do we retain privacy? Like
Yeah,
the Facebook, the
yeah.
Instagram is our metaverse. Okay, so then so the road ahead, or rather the roads ahead, are we ready or not? Are we ready for 4.0? I mean, it's already there. What do we do, for our school children? What do we do so that they can both enjoy the technology but remain human at the same time? So, how do we prepare our children before the fifth, sixth, seventh industrial revolutions arrive? Okay, so I just want to show you this um, cartoon by Datuk Lat, and this is our new Prime Minister's office. And before you see him, you'll be busy. You have to be busy, busily reading several things because he's so well read. He's read the Yang Amat Berhormat Prime Minister had
That
he read
Shakespeare.
he
Yes.
read
Yeah.
Shakespeare, the entire works of Shakespeare 4 times. I
Yes.
am ashamed to say I've not even read it twice.
Yeah.
There may be some place I've read 2 or 3 times, but I've not gone the entire.
In all his English speeches, I've seen him quote T.S. Eliot. He's quoting
Yes,
Shakespeare. His
yes,
Wordsworth.
yes. So what I'm saying is that we have to humanize language education. You cannot just be teaching grammar, tenses, writing, but you have to humanize it by making sure that literature is a huge part of that teaching, of the education. So we are in the midst of various crises. Now I talked about two things, fourth IR and COVID. But we've got problems with climate change, with food security, with aging society, and all these worlds of where our life can be problematic. They are all in literature. You can read about people getting ill, how to die easily or how to die hard. All these are in many literary works. So humanistic competencies such as emotional intelligence, mindfulness, empathy, social responsibility,
Soft
these can
skills.
all be nurtured from or can be cultivated from the things we read in literary texts. Okay, these competencies differentiate humans from robots and artificial intelligence, which is what it is right now. So on 11th of December, the 10th Prime Minister said, Anwar mahu anak muda telaah karya tokoh pemikir dunia. Okay, so I'm saying, yes, please include some of these works in our as part of the English language curriculum. Okay, if you were to look at PISA tests, on reading, because they will test mathematics, science, and reading. The reading portion which I have looked at, I saw one paper where the first excerpt was an excerpt on 100 years of solitude. So no wonder we don't do so well in PISA tests, because we are not challenging the brains of our children by giving them all these texts. Because I think the human brain is adaptable. It doesn't mean that when you give something hard, we will forget about it, but it will make sure we can make it work harder for you, adapt it for you, so that you are able to understand all these difficult texts. But what it does to us would be, we'll have um, um, mindfulness, empathy, and so on. So I think that's my introduction to what IR is, and in what way it will seem as though human beings are being dismissed, and how we can bring back human factor back to the center. Like, we are the boss. Don't make fourth IR the boss.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is going to be my next question to you, Prof. If we look at Malaysia and the current situation, has technology overtaken us? Has it gone beyond what it's supposed to be? I mean, in that sense, has it gone too far from us, or is it still like reachable? Are we able to reach it, or it's too far ahead? That will be
Uh,
my next question to you.
no, I think they are. I think we are aware that we need to balance between technology and you know importance of humans within this situation. So the fact that Malaysia has got this plan, this roadmap. Ministry of Higher Education has got this roadmap, and now that you are doing this forum, I think you are telling us, okay, we cannot, we cannot say, we cannot hide from, or we cannot dismiss technology altogether, because it does simplify our lives. But we need to find a way so that we are not sidelined. So if, let's say, one day there is no work because everything is done for us, what do we do? How do we ensure that uh, emotions, or characteristics like empathy, religiosity, piety, and all that still thrive? So I think the only way would be to insert some of these values through different subjects in schools, but especially the English language has got this, it's just the right fit for us to uh, uh, to nurture these good values, so that our lives, even within technology, we are still okay. We will be very okay.
I don't see the other panel members. Dr. Raihana, Mansuria, Mr. Abiato.
They are.
Yeah. So in terms of, I mean, when we look at this question, IR 4.0, same question that I've asked Prof. Datin, Dr. Ruzi, do you think that IR 4.0 is here now, and we are fighting against time, and we are racing against technology, or are we in our comfort zone, and it's still far ahead, and we will reach that eventually? What's your opinion, Dr. Rahana?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramesh. First of all, I'd like to pick up on what Prof. Ruzi has highlighted, and I think it's crucial, some of the things that she has spoken about the volatility of our age. yes, technology is important. Technology has a place in our lives, but we don't want to put precedence on technology over humanity, as Prof. Ruzi has rightly said. There is ways and means for us to balance the two. So my take on today's discussion, I've got two takes. One would be the studying of literature in this age called VOCA. As we all know, what is VOCA? VOCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And Prof has rightly, introduced to us the volatility and complexity and uncertainty of this world and how ambiguous it is. On the one hand, it is important for us. Machine automation of knowledge and sharing and digitizing of knowledge is important. But on the other hand, does it marginalize specific disciplines like the humanities? So my session, I want to give you 5 reasons why I think the studying of literature, even today in this age of the VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, why it is still important. The first thing I want to say is that stories like poems, literature, novels, short stories, it connects us to the past. What is what is literature at its core? At its core, literature is stories about life and living, stories about the past, about the present, even the possible future, as Prof. Ruzi has highlighted. So these kinds of stories, especially stories about the past, link us today, our 21st century learners, to our civilization, our tradition, our myths, our folklores, and the archetypes that is present in these stories. Consider, for instance, the National Laureate Professor Muhammad Haji Saleh's poem, Si Tenggang's Homecoming. That poem is in fact a revisioning of a folklore rooted in Indonesian tradition of Malin Kundang, right? So the folklore, a lot of us know the motif of the folklore of Si Tanggang in Malin Kundang. He rejects his mom after reaching a level of prosperity in life. So that this tragic character of Malin Kundang allows us today, through the poem of Muhammad Haji Saleh in Si Tenggang's Homecoming, to speak to our learners about prosperity and filial piety, the kind of issues that Prof. Ruzi talked about, the importance of ethics and morality, and how tapping into the stories and poems that our writers and our folklore writers talk about and write about allows our learners to say, yes, there is technology on the one hand, there's machine and there's connectivity and the internet of all things and all that, but there is also elements of our humanity that we need to continue to nurture. So this is one reason how literature can be used, connects us to our past.
That brings me to this question, Prof. May, if I may interject.
Go ahead.
Many have asked me this question, and I have tried my best answering this. What is literature? And when I say literature, thick books, that's literature. When you say that it's folklores and stories, how stories make stories and all that, that is something I think we still need to, get into this definition of what is literature. Because when I say literature, it's thick books. It's got nothing to do with technology. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's thick books. I've heard this a lot.
I think, I've never been a good reader, Dr. Ramesh. When I was growing up, I'm actually a very slow learner, I will say that. And from my own experience of being an educator for the last 27 years in the literature program specifically, I will say that it's how we educators match our learners to the right books or the right stories. If our learners think that literature is literally just thick books, the fault, I think, is not in them. I think the fault is in us for not matching them accordingly and helping them draw something from that text. If I go on a little bit, I'm just going to skip this slide because Prof. Ruzi has already spoken about science fiction. I'm going to skip this. So this is a short story. Can you see the short story? It's a 6-word short story. Today, we will call this kind of short story flash fiction. This was a short story written by Ernest Hemingway, the 20th century American novelist, right? This is a 6-word short story. Let's read the short story together. For sale, baby shoes never won. Now, tell me what this story is about. Tell me what's at the core of this story. And if I may, rhetorically, I'm asking that question. At the core, in the 6 words, the narrator paints to us a picture of a possible tragedy that had befallen a family with the loss of a baby. Now, how do I know this? As a reader, I need to infer, I need to read between the lines. I need to infer what is being hinted at. That a never worn pair of shoes being sold is possibly because the baby is no longer alive, perhaps. The baby can no longer wear these shoes for some reason. Now, we can help our learners understand the core of the story by tapping into their own emotions. It's the reader's role to fill up the gaps and the silences in these 6 words. And it's in the reader's ability to deconstruct what is this story about, that we allow ourselves to understand what Ernest Hemingway was trying to capture in these 6 words. So in answer to your question, it doesn't have to be thick books. We can strip it down to 6 words. And there are many such flash fiction online today. So in answer to your question, what is literature? To me, it doesn't have to be the canon. It doesn't have to be what is known as the great literature, English canon. It is stories that captures our imagination, that takes us on a journey to help us understand better our role as members of humanity. So I would keep it loosely to that definition. It can be popular, it can be the classics, it can be 18th century, 21st century, it can be chick lit, right? It can be young adult novel. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that there is something in the story that captures our imagination and allows us to articulate some ideas. So if I can just go on a little bit more, Dr. Ramesh, I also feel that literature allows us to develop a particular type of intelligence. We know this from Howard Gardner's book, The American Psychologist. In his seminal book, Multiple Intelligences, he identifies 9 multiple intelligences, including, and I'm sure you know this, intrapersonal, interpersonal, linguistic, existential, kinesthetic, logical, mathematical, spatial, naturalistic, and musical. But for specific reasons, linguistic intelligence strike to me as a very valuable tool from which literature or studying of literature can be developed, So what is linguistic intelligence? At its core, some of the qualities include remember written and spoken information, enjoy reading and writing, debate or given persuasive speeches. People with this kind of intelligence, a character, include they're able to explain things very well. And another important clue is they know how to use humor when telling a story. So this is higher order thinking skills, if you think about it. The ability to synthesize, the ability to create using the language. It requires a particular type of intelligence, linguistic intelligence.
Human intelligence, being very human about it.
My statement is that studying literature allows our learners to explore the potential linguistic intelligence in them. What other subjects besides, as Prof. Ruzi mentioned, language and literature, allows students to immerse themselves in the exercise of expressing and developing their linguistic intelligence? I can't think of another subject or other subjects that does this. And if I'm allowed one more point, I also feel besides linguistic intelligence, I feel that literature also taps into our ability to develop existential intelligence. And this is a short story that recently won the 2022 Commonwealth Short Story Prize. The title of the story is And the Earth Drank Deep. Just look at the title, And the Earth Drank Deep. Imagine if a student writes in an essay and starts the sentence with And the Earth Drank Deep. First thing we'll say is you cannot start a sentence with
Yeah.
And it's a conjunction. Our linguistic
Yeah.
intelligence is kicking in here,
Yeah.
you know? You cannot start a sentence with and, right? Now ask yourself or get your learners to ask themselves, why does the writer start with this kind of a title? And the earth drank deep. What happened before the earth drank deep? What caused the earth to drink deep? Why did
I
the earth
see.
deep?
Yeah.
So when you ask these kinds of big picture questions, you are engaging with the text even before engaging with the text. So literature allows us to develop this kind of intelligence.
Very, very well put, Dr. Rahana. Interesting and well explained. But the question here now is the next question here is, how do you think that in this era, 4 point, industrial 4.0 or industrial forward, is literature going to be relevant? Is it competing? Is it lost? Is it going to be a subject that we want to hold on to, or is it just going to be a baggage that, eventually we're going to let it go into the ocean?
I think all of us here, the five of us here, we believe very strongly that literature has a place and a role, not just in the 21st century, and beyond, you know. And we are having to actually get together today. Personally, I feel that this is an awesome opportunity to just speak our mind. We're having to come together today to explain ourselves why literature is relevant and why literature is important. And I think that's a sad note, if I may. You know, I think that's sad that we're having to do that rather than say, look, literature is important no matter what happens, go for it. Just keep progressing with humanities. I think we always know that there is a place for storytelling and storytellers in our civilization. And the day we stop thinking that is the day the civilization stops. No matter how much the machine technology is taking over our environment, civilization, at the bedrock of civilization will be stories, mythology, archetypes, folklores, legends, and we need to nurture that both in our storytellers as well as in our readers.
But nowadays, from this is just general observations. You see that computer games, social media interactions, all that has kind of like taken over listening to stories, storytellings, reading books, and all that. And that is happening, and that worries me. Because if I'm going to ask, whenever I walk into a classroom and I ask this, do you know this character Pak Pandey from the Malay folklore? They don't know. And in my experience of teaching, every year when I'm in a classroom, I'm going to ask this question: Tok Tok Kai, Seronong Batang, di mana hinggap di tengah belakang. It's from Pak Pandey, and I've been asking this every year. Go find out. Ask your parents, ask your grandparents, and tell me what is that, and where is it? Where does this phrase come from? And to be very sad about this, it doesn't happen. I've never gotten an answer. And today, I'm saying that this is actually from Pak Pandey's folklore. So I can't see the screen. Is everyone there? Yeah. So that brings me to the next question now. How are we going to use literature and technology? How is this marriage going to take place? So, Dr. Rahana, how are we going to just harness this robust entry of technology with very vigorous arrival of technology? And how are we going to uh, marry this with the existing way of teaching literature, understanding literature, and is this I hope the new arrival is not going to underline or undermine literature, but there is we're looking at a marriage that's going to take place. What's your view on this, Prof? Dr. Marriage.
Can I just find out first of all, am I sharing screen?
No.
We can't see.
Because I am sharing screen, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now
it's
you
there.
are.
am I?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
All right, cool. All right, so Dr. Ramesh is putting me in the spot by asking me back-to-back questions. So I'm both grateful because I need to speak my mind, but at the same time, I like to hear what others have to say as well. But my thoughts would be these. As an educator, I must be honest that I have not been using technology throughout my career. I've been a faculty member only since 1995, but I've only started using technology by design since 2013. So I'm a bit late to the party, if you like. But if I may, I think one of the things that I would suggest how we use technology is by design. What I mean by that is it's not something that happens naturally, seamlessly. It's something that we as educators need to incorporate into our teaching and learning and assessment. So these are my five. These are my ideas on how we can use technology. One of the things that I noticed, especially during the pandemic, is that yes, we are using technology, but we are not getting through to all of our learners. Some learners will be quiet. Some learners may even be completely off screen. They don't even appear in the classroom context. So one of the suggestions that I had for myself is one of the questions rather, how do I create equity using technology? How do I create equity for my classroom if I have a 40 student classroom? How do I ensure that all 40 of them, they are able to engage with me and I am able to engage with them? So if you have a large class, chances are you won't get through to all your learners during classroom. So one of the reasons that I feel technology can be used in this case is when we set up a mobile classroom like WhatsApp or Telegram, where you begin to open up the borders or the spaces and allow learners the opportunity to engage with you on their equal footing, in terms of their pace and their time. So this is one way technology can be used, allowing us the opportunity to speak directly to our learners and for them to speak directly to us, through the use of technology. And another way technology can be used in today's age is for us educators, we need support. We can't do this alone. God knows, we try to be creative and innovative, and yet we are stuck. Sometimes we are not able to engage a particular learner, or learners may have specific issues or problems. But chances are, whatever issues and problems our learners are experiencing, it is not unique. It is something that is shared by others. So my strong recommendation is for us educators to use technology to find fellow collaborators, find the support that we need. And something called community of practice. I know all of you, I'm sure you're familiar with this term. There are many platforms that offers support in terms of how to use technology and digital literacy in the teaching of, can be literature, can be language, anything. So this is one way how technology can help. Another way that I strongly feel technology can help in the teaching of literature, especially texts that students find difficult to get through, or they just can't seem to digest. One of the things that we can do is to use technology to create what scholars are calling micro or personalized spaces of learning, right? You create content, or you use content on open education resources and park it somewhere on your platform. It could be your learning management system, any learning management system that is made available, or just go use Google Classroom, right? Park your micro learnings and keep it there with some questions, allowing students to take their time to understand certain things and do the task given to them. And finally, I also feel that another way technology can facilitate our teaching of literature is to encourage our students to become content producers rather than content consumers, you know, and give them tasks instead of just giving them essays or final exams to sit for. Get them to create things, create content, podcasts. If they're good at certain things, if they're good at speaking, make it go the podcast route. If they're good at writing, make it go through the writing and posting it on medium.com, for instance. This is something I feel would nurture in our learners the idea that whatever they're reading in the text, whatever opinions they're developing based on that text, they can share that somewhere. They can share it on their social media. Dr. Ramesh talked about how students are more interested in what's happening on Instagram or Facebook or even TikTok, right? Maybe get them to do a 30-second or 45-second video about why this book or this story or this poem hit home for them when they read it after discussing it with class. And that content can be shared with other learners, can motivate other learners, and we give them the credit because it's allowing them the opportunity to develop their voice, to develop their own opinions, to develop critical thinking, to develop their confidence even. So, in a nutshell, this is what I feel technology can be used for. The opportunity to create equity in our learning engagement, the opportunity to create micro-personalized learning spaces, and the opportunity to find collaborators and support online. And of course, finally, the opportunity for our learners to develop content instead of just consume content on the social media.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hannah.
Yes.
All this is done indirectly.
I think, my personal experience, Dr. Ramesh, we need to personalize our teaching to the students that comes into our classroom that particular year. I've always believed that I am as good as the learners that come into my classroom. And what by that I mean is the more I engage with them and the more I bring out the best in them, the more they bring out the best in me. And sometimes those challenging opportunities where learners just can't seem to get what we're trying to get them to do allows me to dig deeper as an educator. I have learners who, in terms of language, they may have difficulty, but in terms of technology, they're quite savvy. So I can tap into the savviness of their technology. They know how to use the social media better than me, right? They know how to use technology better than me. So what I can do is tell them, okay, tell me your thoughts and share it in a way that's engaging. It could be an animation, a graphic animation. It could be a podcast, anything. So technology allows them, that expression, all the glitters are not gold, right? From Merchant of Venice, from Merchant of Venice. So that idea that technology sometimes is just the glitter, but if we convert that and make them see that, look, there is something good in this technology, and the good is you get to share your thoughts with others. Your friends may want to know.
And so, definitely not letting go the aspects of humanity and the soft skills, the development of soft skills mentioned by Prof. Ruth here. Yeah. On this quest or in this journey of embracing technology, we should not, in any way let go what literature stands for. It's Absolutely. The development. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very well put, Dr. Rahana. Thank you so much. I'll go to the next segment, which is we'll invite the other speaker, Surya. Welcome to the studio, Pon.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah. So here, you have listened to Prof. Ruzi and listened to Dr. Raihana. And it's true that the arrival of technology is here. It's here. And my question to you as a person who has been in the teaching profession, teaching literature for many, many years, 30 years, and Your question that I'm going to ask is, are we ready? Are we ready in schools for all this? Is it going on? Are we using technology in the teaching of literature? Are we ready for IR 4.0?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ramesh. All right. Looking back at what Dr. Rai and Prof. Ruzi mentioned, and the question being, are we ready? I would say, if not now, I think now we are exactly more ready than for IR4 using technology, because during the pandemic itself, whether we knew how to use or we do not know how to use, we were forced to use it. All teachers had to have the Google Classroom platform. We had to learn to use the Delima platform, and we were connected to students via Telegram, WhatsApp, because we had to have lessons go on. So that actually was a practice ground, we could say, for us to go into this. So when we were already forced into this, and then with the idea of, IR 4.0, with the digital tools coming in, and with the good support itself of MOE giving us webinars like this, workshops, and even in schools, we used to have all these workshops teaching us how to use certain tools in order to reach out to the students. So we cannot actually, at this moment in time, after 2 years of using all of these platforms, say we are not ready. So in that aspect, we are ready, but of course we need support. We will need more help, as the tools just keep new ones just keep
Yeah.
coming in, and we being teachers, the younger teachers, I think they are so tech savvy that they are enjoying teaching all the more, because it's all at their apps
And
are all they're built to use these apps. For us of the older ones, a little bit of a struggle, but as what Dr. Rai also mentioned just now, the students seem to know so much better. And if the teacher is a willing student as well, that's what we always say. It's a two-way learning environment. So if the teacher is willing, I think the students are so happy to teach us and to use these tools together, and so much more actually can be achieved. And I would share with you later some of the things that my students were able to do, like field trips, virtual field trips, using botanical gardens in their field trips, and showing us a virtual tour, because we were doing some poems, nature poems by Wordsworth and all that. So they were able to give us all that. And as a teacher, I'm so mesmerized, So, even assessing criteria and all, I think can go into all this digital criteria with our PBS and all. So if we are talking about, are we ready? Yes, definitely. Do we need it? Yes, definitely. We need it more now than ever. And in the midst of all, and literature per se, right? In the midst of
yeah,
all this hype about automations, different forms of realities, I feel literature contributes to that real in all these different virtual realities. The humane aspect, the human touch. I liked what Prof. Ruzi mentioned just now, quoting Steve Jobs, the technology married with humanities. To get that wholesome, full individual being, I think technology alone will not be able to give us that. It is a marriage between the technology and humanities.
and
Technology,
definitely and
yes,
definitely not the mutilation of literature. I mean, literature is still very much as vigorous as it is, and
yes,
all this technology is just aiding the expression of literature, conveyance of the
yes.
literature, and not mutilating it.
Yes,
That's an
not
excellent.
mutilating. In fact, it is a scaffolding. It is, in fact, making it better. So rather than have the fear factor towards, multimedia, and because I started with that phobia, actually, because I almost close to retiring, I had this phobia of, oh my goodness, how am I going to use these tools? For some of us in schools, it's often made compulsory even. But now that I know how to use it, all right, and I think it's fantastic. It gives us more than what we had. It takes print even further. So if you can marry both of this, and literature being stories, because it's text-based, right? They can actually visualize different ways of looking at characters, different ways of looking at landscapes, and the students are able to use their artistic talent as well into their literary textual talent. So they marry both and come up with so many wonderful things actually. And of the right from wrong, not just via computer generated databases telling us how to think, but you are given a story, and the students are able to give their own perception. Like for Form 6, I'm doing Pride and Prejudice, so we had an email written, right? And some of them had emails with a lot of emojis, the anger of one character towards another character, like how they felt, how Elizabeth felt towards Mr. Darcy, all right, in the beginning when he was when he did not have very nice things to say about her presence in the hall. So those kind of, you can see technology itself, right, cannot deny us emotions, because look at the number of emoticons and the emojis that just keep coming up more and more. All right, so definitely the emotional, the EQ factor is an important factor. And what else can give us this if not literature? The values and the virtues. It's the compassion. If you ask me, it's the amount of expressions that literature can give us that expresses humanity itself. So with digitization and all that, we are able to make it richer, in fact. So that part of it. And if you're looking at, I'll share my slide here. You can look at how it is there in the syllabus itself.
Yeah.
That it's there in the syllabus itself. If you look at our standard-based curriculum framework, right, communication, how literature should be the best platform to be able to, descriptions, mastering verbal and non-verbal language skills for daily interactions. And when we teach students these literature codes and all that, I have students, speaking to each other, scolding each other sometimes with codes, and it comes up with an exciting classroom, right? And the physical development and aesthetics. If we look at that also, all right, literature in action actually helps us applying knowledge, skills, and ethics in order to achieve physical and health well-being, appreciation, and applying imagination. Whatever we feel technology is going to take away from us, it cannot take away, rob us of our imagination. It's a birthright. We are able to imagine our story, our perception based on the text. Yeah, and then we have, for talent, creativity, innovations, it is literature that is going to give them that platform, that avenue, that push, that driving factor. So, my plea would be that, add more literature, make literature more compulsory, so that we get this, with all this fear of being robbed of personality. The IR4 is so much about automation and the humans are going to be, vacuumed out of the scenario. I think, no, with literature, we are able to actually put that balance, strike that balance that Dr. Rai and Prof. Ruzi were talking about, the personal competence. So it's all there in the framework for the syllabus. It's just that how much of it, because if we look at it, we have, my major concern, I would say, is that when we have moved to this new CFR aligned syllabus, the focus has ended up being on listening and speaking, reading, writing, and yes, Yes, the four components. And then, yes, the literature in action is there in the literature component text. But my worry, my concern is that how much of it is actually going to be done because of the emphasis on the four skills. So if we could still try to bring back a little bit of this in the testing and evaluation, perhaps add them into the reading comprehension, then there's a reason why, because teachers are all burdened with trying to push for the grades, and the grades focus on the four skills. So if we do not have something solid in the testing and evaluation, that may be a problem. I'm just anticipating that problem. So that is one that I have. And if we look at the entire aspect of it, there is the SPM literature in English paper available, which many are not aware. Imagine you have students who are looking forward to that little bit percentage of your literature in action in the class, because that's where the fun is, the fun element in the English syllabus. But imagine being able to do the entire literature in English paper, one whole paper, doing poems and novel, and be able to explore your individuality through this paper. And then for Form 6 as well, we have the literature paper, which is which many are actually quite unaware. So when we look at these, I'm glad LTAC has actually, ELTC, sorry, has actually given us this platform, so that, if there are people who are interested in these papers, to take this extra elective subject, so that literature grows, and not just for the 21st century, but beyond.
If I may say, Surya, if I may say, the very imagination of technology, if we are talking about technology, the very imagination itself was captured in literature way before it was even introduced. I mean, talking about science fiction literature, where all these were imagined, not people, transporting from one place to another, in a flash. Things like that was imagined in science fiction literature. Thank you for making that point. The next question that I would really want to know is, in terms of readiness. This question is very much related to readiness. What are the actual issues the teachers, teachers who are teaching SPM, STPM literature are facing, the real challenges that they are facing right now? Is
All
it
right.
in terms of support? Um, uh, are they still
Of
in isolation? Are they still in isolation? Is there enough support? I'm
support is
talking
there,
about
yes.
community. Yeah.
Support as in digital tools and technology, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of support, yes, because with this TS25 and all that, schools have so many programs, workshops, Chromebooks and all. And recently we had the handing out of gadgets and all for students in the B40. So there is support, but teachers on their own, we are also chasing to finish the syllabus and to meet the KPIs of the results, because SPM is such a competitive examination, and we are chasing for the GPMPs and the gradings and all that. But at the same time, it is more of the teacher per se, how much the teacher wants to, and the language classroom is where we can go all out, because language is so versatile. We do not necessarily have to stick to the textbook, and now with digital tools, we are able to allow students to explore. So support is there, because the schools provide a Wi-Fi, we have computer labs, and there is a lot of we have IT techs in school helping us. Like, as for me, in the initial stages, I was struggling with a little bit of aspects of technology. So we have very savvy IT experts there who are willing to help us out. And the state's Jabatan Pelajaran Negeri and all that are also carrying out a lot of programs community-centered programs to help teachers face these challenges. So it's going good, but we welcome more support. As you know, whenever there is support,
Yeah,
we flourish.
my next question is going to be on that. So, what kind of support would you need? I mean, this is the best platform you can, share your grievances, and you'll be able to, put in a strong request. And this is actually what we need.
All right. Thank you for offering the platform, and I may just take too much of it. As for me, being a literature fan and seeing how the worry that, will they rob us of our literature subject? Will they rob us of, especially the new CEFR aligned syllabus is a little worrying, as in how much of literature is going to be reaching the students. We have the text, we have the Sing to the Dawn for Form 5, we have the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and all that, but we may not have enough of that reaching out to the students because of the focus more on the 4 components: the listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So if we are going all out and talking about the humanity aspect, right, the humane factor, the EQ factor, then that it'll be good if teachers are exposed to how we can use this literature in the classroom, how we can actually push students towards the Form 5 literature subject, because a lot of worry is on the focus of the results, that they worry that how are students going to do this other subject, which is the literature, the elective subject. So if you could help market the literature subject, I'll be more than happy, because then we will have more students taking literature, and we do not have to worry about technology robbing us of individuality.
Okay, this question is very much focused at the lit in action in the current English curriculum, and it's not tested in the examination, so therefore it's not an examination component, right?
Yeah, it's not an examination component anymore. It used to be.
So is it still being taught in classes, in Form 5s, in Form 4s, and Form 5s? Or is it being sidelined because it's not a important component in the exam, or it's not being tested? Yeah. So is this in a way? I see it as, it has been kind of, let go. People have said we don't need to teach it because it's not being tested.
Yeah, very pertinent, because that seems to be the attitude of many, as in, what, that's how it happens, right? School is pushing you to achieve your results. And but I think this needs further research. But if you ask teachers, mostly, yes, this is the claim that, you are already focusing on the 4 skills. So since this is not tested, so therefore it is I do not dare to say that it's not being taught, but it would be my last priority. That's what many teachers say. It is not prioritized. And I have heard students, nieces and nephews, who have actually told me that the year is ending. Hopefully the teacher is going to do it in January, because the school session is ending soon. So I have nieces in Form 1s and Form 2s have not done any of these poems, they're not aware. They have gotten the text because under SPBT, Pinjaman Buku Text, the book is given to the students, but they have not been taught. I do not blame the teachers per se, because the evaluation system has become such where if it is not tested, then this is how it was initially 10 years, 15 years ago, or 20, if I'm not mistaken, when it was there, but it was not tested. Therefore, it was not taught. Once it came into the testing and evaluation aspect, yes, I can see it being taught very diligently. And of course, we are doing it for the exam purposes, but the children are not just learning it for the exam purposes. A message is learned, like Si Tenggang's homecoming. Then we had the road not taken, making choices in life. It can be that one poem, even if you learn in that entire year. They were supposed to learn, I think, 4 poems in a year at that time. But even if you had just learned that one poem, the road not taken, choices you make in life or choices you do not make in life, it changes that something in that student. And teaching, like Sing to the Dawn in Form 5 is a fantastic text. Females being suppressed to education, two different inequality, gender. These are all wonderful things that we should teach. The children will learn that the suffering that they're suffering is not theirs alone. It is across cultures, across the globe. It is there everywhere. So when we are able to show this, they're all adolescents with so much of turbulence in their life. And if they feel that there are others who feel some kind of consolation and comfort is there in their lives. So that's why I feel it has to be tested if possible.
Since it's not a tested component, would this contribute, to the lack of interest in literature in over the period of time, that students may not know what is literature, therefore they would not be encouraged. They do not be, when you don't know something, you wouldn't want to do it in the future. So
yes, that's definitely my fear, because when we meet at a party, all right, and students talk about the literature, the poems that they would have done, and that is something to talk about. And we have students who go overseas and they have done this particular text, and wow, there is engagement between two people, there is engagement in a group of people. But here, when we are going out and my area of interest in nephews at a gathering, so I'll tell them, let's talk about this poem, and they are unaware of this poem, and this is just 2 years or 3 years, it's not being tested. So I have this, it's a phobia for me. It's a fear that we are going to lose it, because if we don't teach it, we will lose it. And if this platform can help us revive, I'll be so happy.
English speaking community we are going to create when literature is not there to kind of color up your life, I would say that.
Yes, it adds color, kaleidoscope of colors, so much of it. And also the other part of it is, if we bring this to whichever platform, I know the answer would perhaps be that it's there in the syllabus. We have not taken it away. It is there in your DSKP. So you are expected to teach. Yes, we are expected to teach, but how many would really want to teach? Because it is not tested. It's not a good perception. It's not a good attitude that if it is not tested, we are not going to teach. But too bad, this is how human nature works.
Yeah. I think the idea of CFR.
So for the speaking, bring out the literature component.
Yeah. Even when we look at the CFR aligned curriculum, it's not about being exam orientated anymore, but the idea that we have not shifted from our previous exam orientated atmosphere, the environment is still lingering, in that sense. But if you look at the curriculum, obviously literature is a subject, and it has to be, is a component, and it has to be taught, right? So so this is one of the major concerns that can be seen as threatening the what you call survival of literature in the IR 4.0 era. Thank you, Ponsuria. That was a very enlightening, very deep, and thank you for enlightening us on a lot of areas that that we did not know things like this exist. All right. So the next speaker, I'd like to call upon Cik Rabiatul. Hi, Cik Rabiatul. Thank you
Hello.
for having us today.
Hello.
Uh, 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 One thing about Cik Rabiatul is I found her very interesting. She has a degree in law, a master's in law, and then suddenly she switches and she does a master's in literature, and currently she's pursuing a PhD in literature. And apart from that, another interesting thing about Puan Rabiatul is that she is, today I learned a new word, it's called Bookstagram. I never knew it existed, so sorry.
Yes.
Bookstagram influencer,
No worries. No.
and yeah, and she's got an impressive follower um, on her channel. So, Che Rabiatul, my question to you is, being a graduate, having masters in law, why is this sudden switch to literature?
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramesh. And yes, it's an honor to be invited to speak in this forum. But yes, but my background has always quite fascinated people because I came from a law degree. If I can just share my screen, I'm going to share my slides right now. Mm, okay. Okay. Is it coming up? Okay. All right. Okay. Do let me know, Dr. Ramesh, see my. Yeah. Can you see my screen? I'm not sure if it's coming
Yeah,
up.
it's there's a bit of lag. I think it might take a little while.
All right. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
visible yet.
Okay. Oh, it cannot access my screen. It's all right then. It's okay. It's all right. Then I'll just speak without my background. So yes, after I finished and completed my master's in law, I went to teaching. I'm an educator in supplementary education. So why did I do that? I've always had a love for literature since I was a little girl. It started with my late father buying me stories. And my life experience really showcases power of stories in children. I will be speaking a lot from children's perspective because I am a student of literature. At the same time, I'm an educator in literature as well. So there are three power of stories that really never left me. The power of stories is that it provides comfort and solace for children. I think teacher Surya, really, if I had you as my teacher, I would be so blessed, teacher, because in a life of uncertainty, in a life that is challenging, I find stories to always provide us the comfort, that sense of I can relate to this character and I can read the character. And as an educator, my students also feel the same thing. And then secondly, I have always believed in this. So stories, basically literature, they provide us secondary traveling. What does it mean? It means because living in Malaysia, I'm not sure if anyone can relate with me regarding this matter. We cannot always as we want. Therefore, stories perhaps about in China or the United Kingdom that gave us imagination and place. So that is how stories really empower us. It takes us away from the place that are limited to. And then thirdly, I believe reading stories also help us understand the world. So this is an element that I think Prof. Ruzi, Dr. Raihana, and Puan Surya also mentioned. It really try to deconstruct how we see our world today. And so that is why after finished my law education, okay, so sorry about the lack of Okay, I hope it's okay now. All right. Okay, so sorry about the connection. But yes, so I hope that the relatability of literature is not being cut off from our education system. Okay. So yes, the power of stories, I think, is always important for children, and I would like to emphasize on that. All right. I will now talk about my social media, but let me just check with Dr. Ramesh. Dr. Ramesh, are you able to catch my points?
Yeah,
Is
I
Dr. Ramesh
can,
there?
and I mean the lag is a bit, um, it's kind of like you sound a bit choppy because you go in and out and all that. So uh, I think I get the
Okay. All right.
idea that
So
what
sorry.
the
As long
literature
as,
offered.
all right.
Okay,
Okay.
so
All right.
let's
Thank you
talk
so much,
about
Dr. Ramesh. Thank you.
your bookstagram. Let's talk about your bookstagram. Um,
Yeah.
so the survival of literature. I understand that you do book reviews, which is an excellent way of kind
Mm.
of like showcasing your reviews and letting the public view it and getting a followership of that many is impressive, Miss Rabiato. So is this what you're doing now? In a way, um, ensures the continuity of literature? Is this the other way forward?
Yes, I completely agree with that. I would say that the industrial revolution 4.0, a lot of people seems to be very worried about it. But as a social media consumer, as a social media user, I feel like social media actually helps connect people together. Uh, I think humans are just seeking for connection. They're just seeking for communication. And COVID-19 really proved that people are using whatever that they can to find like people, perhaps people with similar interests. So that is why social media is very instrumental, I believe, in preserving and, of course, enriching the love for literature society. Uh, the main reason why it is so important is that you may not find like-minded people in your own physical community because our physical community is limited. You may not learn as much as you want in your physical circumstances. Therefore, technology really helps in us trying to move beyond the box that we are given. For example, you may want to be connected to someone from Singapore, someone from India, or even if you want to connect with writers of stories that you love, now you are able to do so. Okay. For example, I have made friends with a few writers from Malaysia that I really, really love. Among them, and I would just suggest their names to all of you, Tash Au. So he's on Instagram, and he really appreciates any feedback regarding his stories. We also have Dina Zaman, a very famous writer as well in Malaysia. So Dina Zaman is also on Instagram, reachable. And then we have another writer, quite a new writer called Karina Robles Bahrain, whose award-winning novel won a Singaporean literary prize. This connection really enhance, I feel, the community. And it just really showcased how industrial revolution and humanity can move together. I am quite frustrated when there is this supposed conflict between technology and literature, because I believe literature is not just about text. Literature can be in any other form. They can be images. They can be, spoken words, because oral literature is definitely your genre. They can also be, storytellings of your past, even historical anecdotes and whatnot. My students, for example,
Even science
at my
fiction,
learning center,
Mr. Yatwa.
even science fiction, yes. And then my students at my learning center, they use this website called Canva. So Canva is this graphic design website, and then you can make scrapbooks out of it. So the stories that we teach students, or can deny that text or long text are quite challenging now for a lot of reasons. However, we must go to their level and we must try to understand how to make stories really, and then empower them in expressing themselves. And I'm not just talking about students also. For example, if we meet other people on social media, or even physically, if we meet people who are enthusiastic about literature, how then do we try and empower them to express themselves a lot more? You know, the love of literature and how literature can. So again, going back to the third hour of stories, how literature helps them make sense of the world. Okay, so yeah, so that is why I believe that industrial revolution can actually enhance and enrich the experience of literature in the community itself. And community, not just physical one, we now have a global community. We have basically everyone is connected, and I think that is really a platform just waiting to be explored and to be and to benefit from, Doctor.
Yeah. And yours is definitely the classic case of success where the marriage between technology and literature has taken place. It's exactly, it doesn't mutilate literature. It keeps it very much alive, and it lives, it thrives in the social media, which is made available by technology. Thank you so much, Ms. Ruby. So now we are moving into the last segment of this forum, which is going to be the questions and answers. So I hope the panel is ready. There are lots of questions waiting. So I'm going to read some of these questions here, which is, should literature be tested? Of course, Ponsuria, you got loads of questions. Should literature be tested? And obviously, it's open to the panel, Prof. Ruzi, Prof. Tatin, Dr. Ruzi, Dr. Raihana, and Ms. Ruby, as well as Ponsuria. Of course, the target is very much in the teaching of literature. So, in the curriculum, in the CEFR-aligned curriculum, literature is no more a tested component. So, what's your opinion? Do you think that it should be tested, or should it be left this way? I think
Well, I think,
Prof
yeah,
will answer this question.
yeah. Uh, well, I don't, nowadays you don't really need memory work. Like for example, if in a test you want to ask, okay, what was the setting for this? What's the, like things requiring memory work? I think that's not necessary now, because you could easily, nowadays you could easily go to Google or and just ask, and you get the answers there. What is more important is testing the skills, the critical skills. That's important. For example, what does this symbolize? What does this flower symbolize? And you know that in literature, there is no right or wrong answer. As long as you can
Yeah.
support whatever you say based on evidence in the text, you are able to explain it well, we will accept it. So I think that is on, I would say, compulsory. You know, testing so that you can nurture that critical skills, that critical awareness. That's compulsory. But if, let's say, that's not easy to do, okay, for some reason, then why don't have, there's so many kinds of assessments available. Why not do a portfolio? You know, portfolio, it could be a digital portfolio, because they love, so it's marrying technology with critical awareness. Okay, so for example, at universities now, we do, they can do videos, they can do so many things. So I think we should not say it's just pen and paper kind of assessment. You should provide various ways in which they could be examined. For example, putting their videos on YouTube, perhaps, or in on Instagram, and then you can see how number of likes they get. You can see comments, or putting it on Twitter. So there are many ways, I think. So we should not be traditional in the way in which we examine. It should be maybe I don't know who will decide all this, but perhaps the ministry can decide on some not so formal kind of assessments. Maybe the weight of these assessments will not be high, but I think given the students' enthusiasm with technology, you can marry technology with things we want them to learn, critical skills, um, reading between the lines, and reading how to show learning about compassion and ethics. All these are available in so many literary texts. So don't be limited by the usual kind of exam. Be creative in the ways in which we can examine students, because I think examination, this is the only way in which we can get students motivated to learn. Okay. That's it, Dr. Ramesh. I think, don't be limited by the kinds of exam assessments you can do.
Yeah, yeah.
Creative in the ways in which you assess.
Okay, that's Prof. Rosie's view on this. How about Dr. Rahana? What do you think about this question?
I think I echo Prof. Rosie's sentiment. I think of course, we need to explore what this means. We know that there are different types of assessment. There is assessment of learning and assessment for learning, right? So the assessment for learning is when you identify at-risk students. You identify students who may be unable to catch up on what's going on in class. And this is why my recommendation of creating micro or personalized learning spaces. So use technology to facilitate that. If you have diagnostic assessment in class and you realize that some students are not able to understand certain passages, certain texts because of language, because whatever reasons, it's the teacher's responsibility to facilitate learning and create spaces online where students can go and explore more about the content that they are lagging behind. And then you've got the assessment of learning, the learning outcome of that particular topic, that particular class, that particular semester. We need to gauge how far the learning outcome is addressed simply through exams. There are other modes of assessment, and the alternative assessment tends to reflect reality or everyday life compared to exams. So I think assessment is important because it helps the teacher as much as the student to know whether the time spent on that particular text has been productive, has been successful. So some kind of an assessment. Even today myself, when I'm looking at the comments of today's presentation, it's a kind of an assessment for me. I need to know, okay, did you understand what I was trying to get through? I had one comment from Dr. Jasveer saying that, she found it interesting that multiple intelligence can be incorporated into teaching of learning. Just that one comment is a kind of a feedback for me. So assessment allows for feedback and feed forward as well. Not just feedback where the semester is done and then now you're giving your students comments, but feed forward in a sense that allows, like maybe week 5, you give them a short quiz or a short assessment of any kind. And based on the data, you tell the students that, okay, some of you seem to understand what I'm trying to do in class, and others, we need to do a little bit more work. But I think by the end of semester, by the end of the year, you would have caught on. So some kind of assessment is necessary in any kind of learning, but
Yeah,
it's the type of assessment, I think, that's
yeah, exactly.
something we need to
That's what Prabhuji was trying to say. The type of assessment. It's not, there is a component called lit in action, and it's not been tested in any way. That is a worry. I think most of those who have attended this forum, I think that would be their biggest worry, is because it's not tested, it's not assessed, therefore it's going to disappear. I think all of us have this worry in us, especially from Consolia's explication, the way she explained it just now. That is her biggest worry. So when you talk about Consolia, this question I think is specifically for you. You think about this modular approach, which looks into the four skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. How could literature fit or be embedded into these four skills? Is it possible of this? And have you personally, seen this happening in the
Uh,
classroom?
this was my suggestion actually, for the speaking component or even the listening component. Of course, for the actual exam per se, the school exams per se, we have to use what is uh, formatted. There is a particular format that we need to follow. But in order to get the students to speak up, right, we can use that literature text and then give opinions based on the text, get students into that speaking mode based on the text, which means uh, the first 3 months of the schooling year, you could perhaps use all your speaking activities from your text. What do you feel about the characters? If this was taking place somewhere else, how would you change? If you had a way of changing the characters, who do you think would be the hero, the protagonist in your own story? Or we could even, that would make them be creative as well. And if, let's say, we can get them to act it out. So it is speaking, it is not the speaking according to the CFR format, but it is some kind of speaking, because when you get them to be so comfortable and confident in speaking, they will be able to do the speaking exam. You don't even have, the teachers don't even have to teach the speaking component per se, because your students have been speaking so much in class for the literature lessons already. So listening text, we could still borrow ideas from the literature component, from the literature in action. And then when it comes to essay writing, we could still get them to write stories. So all that literature in action doesn't necessarily have to be, just and the various kinds of assessments. So we can actually bring these ideas and put it in, embedding that into any of the four skills. A simple text completion, close passage. Of course, that is not where I would want to see literature one day, in a rational close passage, but it's a start to have a rational close passage, fill in the blanks. They're familiar, they see the name of the character, say, hey, I've read this in my literature text, I know this character, or I read this last year in my poem. So it's nice to bring that back, and even if it's in a reading passage, why not? So that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Ponsoria. And we don't have much time. We have barely have a few minutes left, and I think that will be the end of questions that we have chosen for this forum. So with this end, we have kind of come to the end. Wish we had more time, and probably we will try something else later in the next coming webinars or forums. We will try to get more time in. So with that said, I again thank the panel of speakers for making time for this forum, and I also thank the audience who have made time to join us. Terima kasih. Jumpa lagi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, keep calm and read literature.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the audience as well. Amazing comments.